Okay, welcome to our first day of reflections in math. So this is lesson 4, definition of reflection and basic properties. I'm going to use on here this thing called a mirror to do my reflections. If you're at home and you don't have one, which you probably won't, you're just going to have to do the best you can to make your reflections, okay? So, the first thing we're going to do is it says to reflect our triangle ABC and figure D across line L. So, I'm going to use my mirror to do that. If you don't have a mirror, then you'll have to do the best you can. So, a mirror, what that does is it shows me the image on the other side so that I can make a reflection so that if I were to fold on this line L here, it would make the same image. Okay, so I'm going to make that mirror here. And so here's my first reflection. And I'm going to do it without the mirror this time. Oh, no, maybe not, because this one's a little bit harder. And then you just use it to make a new figure. And it's not super accurate, and you don't have to be super accurate either to get the idea of what we're doing today. So there's our reflections, and then it says label the reflected images. So remember, in this whole chapter, there's always going to be an original and then a copy, or an image it's called. And our original will be labeled with regular letters. Our copy, or our image, is going to be labeled with prime. So if this is A, this must be A prime. This is then, and I'm going to move mine a little bit. It should land right on it. This is then B prime. It's right on top of B. It's supposed to be. And here's C prime. Okay, so there's my reflected image of the triangle. And then here we have figure D, and so this would be figure D prime. Okay, so there's my reflections, there's my labels, everything's ready to go. Something to note about these now, two very important things are this. Reflections preserve, angle measure. Okay, what that means is that if I know on my original, for example, this is 30 degrees, then I know that my reflected image right here of B prime is also 30 degrees. Okay. The other thing that's super important is reflections, and I'm going to abbreviate here for space, preserve, length. So if I know, for example, AC is 9 centimeters here, then my reflected version of C prime A prime should also be 9 centimeters. Okay. And those will become important later on when it asks you to explain or give a reason of how you know something. And I'll show you in a few minutes how we're going to revisit that. The last thing on this first page is down at the bottom here. It says which figures were not moved to a new location on the plane under this transformation. And it's not really a figure here. I would almost just replace that with the word point. And the point that wasn't moved was point B. Okay, right here. That's the only one that didn't move because it's directly on the line of reflection. Anything that's directly on the line of reflection will not change its location. Okay, I'm going to try to adjust the volume here real quick before we move on. I guess I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay, well, we'll work with what we got. Okay, we're actually going to skip a page now. I'm trying to condense it for the for the sake of time here. And we're going to move on, not to number 3, but to number 5 here. And that is on page 14, and this is what it looks like. Now, when you get to number 5, you'll right away you should notice that you have something different going on here, and that is that you have a figure that's right in the middle of your line of reflection. Okay, so in order to reflect a figure like this, you're going to actually have to do 2 reflections. You can start either way. I'm going to start with this side right here, and normally we're going to be measuring with a ruler or a mirror or something, but I'm going to reflect this over the line first. Okay, and so this should be G prime now. And then the other half, really, you're going to reflect, and I'll try and show you with color here, just this part's the top, on the top, so you want to reflect just that part across the bottom here. Okay, and so now remember, this is a reflection, meaning that if you fold this figure on the line, you should get the points that are opposite to land on each other. So this is actually E prime and this is F prime. A little trick is, you know how to label them. They should lie on a straight line together. So E prime will lie on the same straight line as E. Same with F and same with G. Okay. So that was just another one I wanted to point out. They like to do a lot of figures like this on tests because they are a little more difficult and harder to see. Okay, so that's all we're going to do on this page. I'm not worried about figure R. We kind of hit that before. And so now we're going to move on to the next page. Okay, and the next page is, I'm sorry, this next page is page 15. It looks like this. Okay. Let me make sure I have the whole image, and it kind of looks like a praying mantis when you have it all on there. Okay, so this one you actually don't have to draw anything in, and please excuse me for a second while I get a new transparency, and mine are all written on. Sorry about that delay. Okay, so on here, all we're going to do is fill in the missing labels. So number 6 says, use the picture to label the unnamed points. So we're only going to focus right now on the points. So if you look at the first figures here, here's figure A, here's reflection figure A. So this is the original, and this is what we call the image. And this one's labeled H right here on this point, so that means that the reflection over here is H prime. Okay, this one's F, the reflection would be F prime. If you move on to the triangle now, you have to look at it to decide which is the original. And if you look at the top, K and I, neither of those have the prime symbol on it, so this one's the original this time. And this one is the image. So now when you're labeling, this one's missing a label here, so look at the one below. That says J prime, so this one's got to be J without the prime. And these two are missing. This has got to be K prime then. Oh, I'm sorry, not K prime. I almost messed that up. Whew. I mean I prime. Remember, we're folding this up here, so this one's I prime, and then this one would be K prime. And last but not least, if you take a look at these, A, B, and C, none of them have primes, so this is going to be your original, this is your image, and then you just label them accordingly. A is here, so this is A prime, this would be B prime, and this is C prime. Okay, that was number 6. We labeled all the unnamed points. Okay, now number 7 says, what is the measure of angle JKI? In math, something to maybe write down on the side here is this sign right here means angle. That means it's looking for a degree. So JKI is right here. We want to know the measure of that angle. Well, if you were to fold this up, 31 degrees would match up with that. Also, K prime and K should match. So this is 31 degrees for this one. KIJ matches with 28 degrees. And ABC is over here. That matches with 150 degrees. And the how do you know? I told you we were going to use this. How do we know that? Because reflections preserve angle measure. That should sound familiar from our first page. Okay, number 8 now. What is the length of segment reflection FH? So, reflection is this image up here, reflection FH. We want to know the length of this segment. Well, that matches with this one down here, so we know it is 4 units. How about IJ? So here's IJ. If you look across, 7 units is what it matches with. How do you know? Because, again, from that first page, reflections preserve length. All right, last but not least for the lesson today is number 9, and that is, what is the location of reflection point D? Explain. So point D is right here, and what is the location of the reflection of that? It's in the same location because it lies on the line of reflection. Okay, that was pretty quick today. Just a little introduction to reflections. Tomorrow we'll be doing them on graph paper a little more accurately, but it gets you an idea of original and images and labeling and the preservation of length and angle measure with reflection. I will, if you have your packet, the homework today is actually in the packet. It is the next pages, so starting on page 16, number 1, and then on 17, 2 through 7. So 1 through 7, it says problem set that goes with it, and that is the homework for today. And that is it. If you have questions, please come see me when you get a chance.